Greetings, I'm Dike Rostant. Welcome back to the TTT News. It is the last, the final, the ultimate episode of In Depth with Dike Rostant for the year 2021, and I'm very glad to be able to share it with timeout specialist Judy Joseph McSween. It is time to go in depth on navigating that mindset into 2022 with me, Dike Rostant. Welcome, Judy. How are you doing?
I'm great, DK. Happy Old Years to you, Happy New Year's, and the same to our viewers.
Thank you so much. And moving into 2022, what are some of those things that are on the forefront of your agenda?
I think, DK, that for 2022, I'm really going to be focusing on getting people more aware of the importance of spirituality in the context of uncertainty. And that's my mandate for 2022.
And how do you translate that mandate into what it is you do as a timeout specialist?
Okay. You know, DK, when I first started doing what I do, there were people who said to me there is an element of spirituality associated with them. And I said, I always denied it. But as the years have progressed, and certainly as COVID is here, and I look and see what's been unfolding, I think I myself have become increasingly aware of the importance of spirituality in our lives and for us in moving forward. So as a timeout specialist, the most important thing I first ask people to do is to pause, to pull away from their busy environments, whatever your norm is, to pull away from that. And to just pause, be quiet, be fully present. And as I bring them into that space, I explore with them the impact of their emotions on productivity, performance, their personal interactions. I explore with them the patterns of their conversations and how that impacts their interpersonal relationships. I explore with them their groundedness, their consciousness. And really and truly, when you look at what's happening in the world today, the conflicts that we see arise from that lack of emotional intelligence. We can't manage our emotions. We don't know how to influence the emotions of others. We don't know how to hold conversations so that the conversations become collaborative. And we aren't spiritually grounded so that we consciously speaking from an ego position versus a position of the higher self.
Well, Miss Judy, you telling me take time out, I running on my hamster wheel trying to go forward. I have so many things. I have to deal with the children, I have to do with work, I have to look for work. And you telling me take time out? How that working out?
So DK, I can say as I sit here that even though people may come struggling into a timeout, I have never had anyone leave a timeout session saying it was a waste of time. As they come into this space and we start with a silent meditation, some deep breathing or everything, they realize that this space is different. They realize that they can exhale, they can relax. And as they do that, I take them through the process of really reflecting on their actions and the impact of their actions, the impact of the actions of others, and have conversations with each other that they don't normally have, and have it in a very relaxed, respectful, non-judgmental way. Many a time I hear people saying, some of the things I've said here, I've never felt comfortable saying it.
You mentioned the word patterns, and I want to speak about the role of patterns on the impact of our lives. What kind of significance does that play?
Okay. So we don't pause often enough to recognize that there are in fact patterns unfolding in our lives. Patterns in the way we think, patterns in the way we behave, patterns in ways things unfold. And interestingly enough, if we were to pause and think about nature, nature manifests for us that patterns exist. So there are the seasons. And if we were to look at our lives, we'll realize that, for example, there may be somebody in the office, and every time that person enters the room, I react in a particular way. And because I react in a particular way, because I'm expecting something from that person, then the conversation either goes uphill or downhill. All right? So if we were to reflect and track those interactions, we can nail down what the pattern is and decide, is it working for you or is it not working for you? And if it's not working working for you, then intentionally make that commitment to do something different.
And I like the fact that you talk about 1, intention, and 2, commitment. So you're committed to that change. Because according to Gladys Knight and the Pips, longing for the freedom of your cage. So there's a discomfort that you've grown comfortable with, and coming outside of that comfort zone can seem like the scariest thing in the world, even though nothing really grows in our comfort zone.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And with that meditation, because you say meditation, I see Buddha behind you. What do you mean when you say meditation?
So meditation, I consider to be the focus on one thing and one thing only. So there are many different types of meditation. In some traditions, they focus on a light. In some traditions, you do a guided meditation. So there's a voice that takes you through the meditation process. There's music that meditation music that people listen to. You can sit by the beach and listen to the rhythm of the shore, the waves crashing, on the shore, and that takes you into a meditative space. You can take a walk in nature and become very conscious of how you're walking, the feel of what's below your feet, be conscious of the noises around you. And that is a meditative process as well. And I share with you that I remember going up to Yeret with the hummingbirds and sitting there and all of a sudden becoming very conscious of the rhythm of the wings of the hummingbird, the humming that you heard, not from their beaks, but from their wings, and that being able to take me into a meditative space. So there are a number of different ways. As a Christian, I do Christian meditation. And when I do Christian meditation, I recite a mantra. So I say the same word over and over. It's a sacred word. And that takes me into that meditative contemplative space.
But answer the person who says that becoming more aware opens them up to feeling more pain, because there are these emotions that possibly have not been dealt with, and it's almost as though you open this window or this doorway and everything comes at you in a rush. How do you deal with that?
Why are we afraid of pain? Pain is part of life. And so the awareness that we have unresolved emotions is good, because unless we are aware of it, then we cannot manage it. All right. So sometimes in meditation that you may become aware of a long lying or the residual pain from something. But again, the meditation can take you through the healing that's associated, that needs to be done with that.
And I remember someone saying emotion can be described as energy in motion. Well, in this conversation, we're moving perilously close to the break. So I think we take the break now and then start afresh. On the other side of it, we're speaking with timeout specialist Judy Joseph McSween. Stay with us. Welcome back to In Depth with me. We are trying to get our minds right so our bodies follow into 2022. And for that, we are doing it with none other than timeout specialist Judy Joseph McSween. The importance of praxis, Judy. Sankofa, go back and get it. Looking at previous actions or experiences and using those to dictate what we do to carry us towards a more ideal state of being. How do we fit that into those commitments or our wanting to do better moving into the uncertain times of 2022?
Yeah. And so because we don't often pause to reflect, we miss things. We miss things. So people would have experienced the uncertainty of 2020, 2021, and they may not be aware that there were things that they did that actually helped them. So this call for pausing, reflecting, seeing what worked is a critical part as we move into 2022 and being able to effectively manage the uncertainty. Because as we reflect, we're able to identify not only the things that worked, but also the things that did not work so well. So those patterns that we're talking about, sometimes we have a pattern that takes us to the next level, but then we have patterns that keep us at the same level. So the pause and reflection allows us to discern the difference and then be able to then decide whether it is we are willing to do something different and then be intentional about the action we're going to take and be committed to doing so.
I like the fact, once again, you talk about committed to a course of action. And something that I personally have been working on is trying to move a little more away from philosophy and towards virtue. Not that thinking is not important, but I think sometimes when I think by the time I analyze all this and this could happen and this could happen, it's almost as though paralysis by analysis, and virtue requires a little more action. So it's almost like a marrying of the two and saying, okay, well, yes, I'm thinking of some of the things that I did, but I'm also moving forward and literally putting one foot in front of the other. There's a African proverb asking the question, how does one eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Yes. Where you had a bite, you had a chew.
Yeah. And another thing we encounter, Dike, is the fact that, yes, we have all this knowledge. But our emotions and our actions are not necessarily in alignment with the knowledge that we have. So we're here in the midst of the uncertainty, and it's going to continue along. And when I think of spirituality, I think of each of us saying to ourselves, there is something bigger than me. I've had an experience where something happened and I wasn't in control of it. And it was for my good. It was for my good. And so as we think about the uncertainty and we think about this, the spirituality, it's our willingness to acknowledge that there is something. I mean, in my case, where I'm Christian, I refer to God. People may refer to Creator, the source, the light, that is bigger than me, and recognizing that when uncertainty exists, that we need to go beyond our five senses. We need to engage that sixth sense, that gut instinct, whatever we want to call it, the inner wisdom, the voice of the Holy Spirit, and listen to that attentively for guidance. Be more rooted, more grounded in our spirituality, because that is what is going to, in our spirituality, that is what is going to guide us through these uncertain times. That is what is going to bring us back into alignment, so that the knowledge we have, where we say that this Creator or whatever is all powerful, almighty, able to make the impossible possible. We're able to align that knowledge with our emotions and the action we take because of that.
And how do you suggest that we exercise that sixth sense? And I like the fact that you use the word exercise, because if you don't use it, you lose it through atrophy. And if you practice not listening, so your ears get hardened, or your heart or your mind, or whatever it is you use to listen to that sixth sense, it becomes harder to actually hear it when it's trying to speak to us. How do we exercise that sixth sense?
Okay, so people will have different practices that they use. For me, the meditation has really helped me because I've had a practice for a number of years of pausing, not just at the start and end of the day, but during the day to pause and hear what's surfacing. There's some people who may have had a practice like that occasionally, and they have found that during this period of time, they are doing it more regularly. And then there are those who have not, because their thing has always been to avoid through distraction. So when I start feeling uneasy, rather than sit with the feeling, I go by the bar, I go by the beach, I go to the gym, etc. And so this is a period of time for us to be willing to do something different, really embrace those emotions that we experience. And not everybody is going to be able to pause for 20 minutes to meditate or whatever it is. And so I suggest that people build up that time that they spend in silence and stillness. So start with a minute, all right? And then move it up maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And the other thing I would add is that when you speak of this meditation practice, sometimes people think about, the perfection of it, of me being able to sit like a Buddha or whoever it is in total silence. And I encourage people that it's not about perfection. It's more about the discipline of doing it. And so if you pause to do that stillness and silence every day, you will find yourself transforming and starting to listen better, to hear better, to tune in better, not just to your inner voice, but remember that that wisdom is also conveyed by nature and by others, all right? So you'll become more attuned to hearing your inner voice and how that inner voice might manifest itself externally.
And even other than that, being able to pause, I think will allow us to listen better, especially when relationships and interactions are becoming a lot more important in the way that we deal or navigate the uncertain times. Because I can control how I treat with you. I can do that. I can control myself.
Yes.
And that helps with the overall equation. This is my perception.
Mm-hmm. I chuckled when you said, relationships are becoming more important. Relationships have been always important. I think that now, within times of uncertainty, people are becoming more aware of the importance of relationships. And not all of us have the competencies to deal with relationships. And therefore the importance of pausing, reflecting, becoming emotionally intelligent, becoming conversationally intelligent, becoming spiritually intelligent, so that we relate to each other better, we collaborate better, because that is what is required in times of uncertainty. Collaboration, inner peace, focus, clarity.
And with that, if you had to tell someone one thing, or you wanted someone to take one thing away from this conversation in terms of setting intentions, gaining clarity, making time for themselves, self-care, what would that thing be in this final minute that we have?
Dike, I would say presence. Learn to be fully present and accept the reality. Because when you can accept uncertainty as it is and have a measure of comfort with it, then that presence allows you to listen and be guided by your inner voice.
And I want to thank you, Judy Joseph McSween, Timeout Specialist, for your presence. And on behalf of the entire TTT News team, thank you for joining us.